Viltrumites. When it comes to the races in Invincible, there's no skipping the Viltrumites. These guys are the kind of intergalactic nightmare that makes you think, okay, we're in deep trouble now. Hailing from the planet Viltrum, they're smack at the heart of the story, and honestly, they've got plenty to impress and terrify with. Picture a civilization built entirely on raw strength and a Darwinian ideology cranked to the max. The Viltrumites, decked out in their often red and white costumes, with neatly styled black or blonde hair and bodybuilder physiques, look like superheroes ripped straight from a classic comic. But behind that polished facade, it's a whole different deal. In the comics, we learn their society went through a bloody purge. They wiped out half their population, deemed weak, to keep only the strongest. It's brutal, but it sets the tone for who they are. Physically, they're nearly indestructible. In the animated series, Season 1, Episode 8, we see Omni-Man, a Viltrumite planted on Earth, tear through the Guardians of the Globe like they're tissue paper. Flying faster than a jet, lifting entire buildings, shrugging off blows that would shatter anyone else. That's just another day for them. Their secret? An alien biology that makes them borderline immortal? They age ridiculously slowly once they hit adulthood. In Invincible number 25, it's revealed their empire spans galaxies, conquered through sheer force. Their MO is to send agents like Omni-Man to planets to prepare them for assimilation. On Earth, that means posing as a hero for years, starting a family, like Mark, Omni-Man's son, before dropping the mask and smashing everything to bits. But the Viltrumites aren't just brainless brutes. They've got a strategy. In the comics, Invincible number 1113, Omni-Man lays out their philosophy to Mark. They aim to improve the universe by weeding out the weak and enforcing their order. The hitch comes when Mark, half human and half Viltrumite, rejects the plan and fights back. That genetic mix becomes their Achilles heel. Hybrids like Mark or Oliver, Invincible number 110, inherit their power but pick up a dose of humanity that pulls them off course. And then there's their arrogance, which screws them over. In Invincible number 6065 Conquest, a hardcore Viltrumite underestimates Mark and ends up skewered after a gory brawl. Even Thrag, their unbeatable leader in Invincible number 140-144, bites the dust against Mark in the sun, too cocky for his own good. What makes the Viltrumites so gripping is that contrast. They're terrifying, yet flawed. In the series, Season 2, we see their empire crumbling. Only a handful are left after wars and their own internal cull. They turn to breeding with other races like humans to survive, leading to twisted moments, like Anissa's scheme with Mark in Invincible number 80. Ultimately, the Viltrumites are a race that rules through might but stumbles over their own pride. In Invincible, they embody brute power clashing with human resilience, and that's what makes their story a cornerstone of this wild universe. Humans. At first glance, humans might seem pretty ordinary and Invincible. No Viltrumite super strength, no stone skin or dimensional portals, just regular folks like you and me on a little blue planet called Earth. But in the comics and the animated series, they're far more than background noise. They're the beating heart of the story, a fragile race that makes up for its lack of power with a tenacity that borders on madness. Right from the start in the series, Season 1, Episode 1, we see them going about their lives, jobs, families, traffic jams, while heroes like Omni-Man play the savior. But behind that everyday normalcy lies a resilience that catches even the toughest extraterrestrials off guard. Physically, humans don't have much going for them. No flying, no regeneration, one solid hit and it's game over. Yet they refuse to just sit there and take it. In Invincible number 7 and Season 1, Episode 7, when Omni-Man slaughters the Guardians of the Globe, it's a human, Cecil Stedman, who steps up. This grizzled old schemer runs the Global Defense Agency with steely cool, wielding satellites, drones, and gadgets to counter threats like the Viltrumites. He's got no superpowers, just a razor-sharp mind and an iron will, and that's enough to stand up to guys who can hoist mountains. The comics take it further. In Invincible number 7191, when Robot seizes control of Earth, ordinary humans, soldiers, scientists, rebels, fight back with jury-rigged weapons, flat out refusing to bow to a mechanical tyrant. What really defines humans is their knack for adapting. Take Mark Grayson, half human, half Viltrumite. He gets his strength from his alien side, but his guts and heart come from his mom, Debbie, a woman who absorbs Omni-Man's betrayal in Invincible number 13 and keeps pushing forward. Or look at Adam Eve, a human juiced up by experiments in Invincible Presence. Adam Eve, she manipulates matter, but it's her earthy determination that drags her back up after every blow. In the series, Season 2, Episode 4, humans face the Sequids, alien parasites, and even without powers, they find ways to resist. Guns, traps, or just a hefty dose of grit. But they've got flaws. Their physical weakness leaves them exposed. In Invincible number 66 to 78, Las Vegas gets leveled by Dinosaurus, and thousands die because they can't defend themselves alone. Sometimes their stubbornness turns absurd. Guys like Sinclair, Invincible number 16, or Powerplex, Invincible number 61, let ego or rage turn them into their own worst enemies. Still, it's that humanity, their emotions, their screw-ups, that makes them so unpredictable. In Invincible number 144, Mark ultimately beats Thrag, and it's his human side, that ability to love and forgive, that tips the scales. The Viltrumites scoff at this weakness, but it topples their empire. Humans in Invincible don't win with brute force. They win because they cling on, tinker, and refuse to give up. A plain race that turns extraordinary through sheer, unrelenting defiance. Flaxan. In the world of Invincible, the Flaxans are hard to miss. These creatures hail from another dimension, and let's just say it up front. Their obsession with invading Earth borders on ridiculous. They burst onto the scene in the comics and the animated series with a look all their own. Greenish humanoid bodies, often clad in metallic armor and high-tech gadgets, their bald heads and piercing eyes giving them a vaguely reptilian vibe. They're not mindless brutes. They've got an advanced society, complete with energy weapons, combat robots, and interdimensional portals. But behind that impressive tech lies a flaw that makes them both fascinating and a bit pathetic: their relationship with time. On their home planet, Flaxa, time races by at a breakneck pace compared to Earth, turning them into invaders as determined as they are vulnerable. Their first attack sets the stage. In Invincible number 3 in the series, they spill out of glowing red portals right into New York, unleashing tanks and soldiers to tear everything apart. Mark Grayson, still a rookie, pushes them back with disarming ease. He smashes their machines and sends them packing in mere minutes. But here's the catch. The second they're back home, they return, aged decades in the blink of an eye for us, sporting even more advanced weapons. That's when their problem clicks. Due to their metabolism or their dimension, time wears them down at a crazy speed on Earth. In the comics, Invincible number 5, an invasion lasting a few hours here equals years for them. Their soldiers end up wrinkled, shaky, and collapsing before Mark's even done warming up. This weakness forces them to hit fast, but they never really learn from their flops. Their strategy hinges on a ruthless logic: invade, plunder, retreat. They see Earth as a gold mine: resources, slaves, the works. In Invincible number 44, we find out they've got a strict hierarchy, with metal-decked generals commanding hordes of grunts. But that obsession is their downfall. In the series, they launch another wave armed with drones and laser beams, and Mark, this time with robot, crushes them again. The comics even show a desperate stab. A Flaxan, dubbed Flaxan Mark, seizes control of his dimension to mount a better assault, only to get taken down by Britt and Donald Ferguson. Their tech keeps evolving, but their game plan stays stuck. Charge in head first, never tweaking their approach against a planet that keeps spitting them out. Thraxan. The Thraxans might not be the flashiest race in Invincible, but they leave a mark with their oddity and surprising role. Originating from the planet Thraxa, these insectoid creatures show up in the comics around Invincible number 2935, and though they haven't appeared in the animated series yet, up to Season 2, they bring a unique twist to the universe. Physically, they resemble giant praying mantises: glossy purple skin, faceted eyes gleaming like gems, slender, sharp limbs snapping through the air. Their look can be off-putting. They're not winning any intergalactic beauty contests, but their real standout trait is their life cycle. Thraxans live at breakneck speed. One Earth year equals decades for them. Birth, maturity, old age, death, It all wraps up in a few months here, making them both fascinating and a bit tragic. Their society mirrors that urgency. In Invincible number 29, we see Thraxa as a lush planet, with cities carved from volcanic rock and a strict hierarchy led by a king or queen. When Mark Grayson and Omni-Man land there, they stumble into a civilization in crisis. The Viltrumites, their sworn enemies, are hunting them down to crush any resistance. Thraxans aren't weak. They've got agile warriors wielding spears and claws, capable of standing up to invaders, but their short lifespan puts them at a disadvantage against brutes like the Viltrumites, who live for millennia. In Invincible number 30, Omni-Man reveals he fled to Thraxa after betraying Earth, and he fathered a son, Oliver, with a Thraxan woman. This kid, half Thraxan, half Viltrumite, grows at lightning speed. In months, he jumps from baby to teen, a genetic mix that's as intriguing as it is unsettling. Their connection to the Viltrumites is the core of their story. In Invincible number 33-35, Mark helps the Thraxans fend off a Viltrumite attack, but the fight is brutal. Their cities crumble, their soldiers drop like flies. Their strategy leans on quick strikes, using their agility, but it's not enough against near-invincible foes. The comics show they'll do anything to survive. They take in Omni-Man as a savior, despite his shady past, and agree to mix their blood with his to bolster their race. It's a risky gamble. In Invincible number 110, Oliver becomes a living weapon against Viltrum, but it doesn't save Thraxa from ruin. Their weakness is that fleeting life. They don't have time to build solid defenses or match the tech of slower evolving empires. The Thraxans are a race caught in urgency, teetering between courage and despair. They lack the raw might of Viltrumites or the cunning of humans. They rely on numbers and speed, but it leaves them exposed. In Invincible, they're a striking contrast, an ephemeral civilization clinging on against cosmic giants. Sequid. The Sequids aren't the kind of race you run into every day, and frankly, we'd all be better off without them. These little extraterrestrial horrors show up in the comics around Invincible number 45-50 and in the animated series with a look that sends shivers down your spine. Slimy blobs, orange or green depending on the light, about the size of tennis balls, with wriggling tentacles and a texture that's like a mix of jelly and nightmare fuel. They come from some unknown planet, probably a damp, dark world where they swarm by the millions. They're not warriors or conquerors in the classic sense, no armies or fancy ships here. Their deal is pure, hardcore parasitism. They latch onto a host, worm their way into its brain, and take over, turning their victim into a puppet. Once attached, they form a kind of mental hive, all linked up like a sticky network. Their first appearance in the series lays it all out. A handful of Sequids escape from a crashed ship on Mars, infecting astronaut Russ Livingston. In no time, he's a hollow-eyed puppet, his jerky movements guided by these critters clinging to his skin. In the comics, we see their real threat. They invade Earth through a space breach, latching onto heroes like Robot and Mark Grayson to wreak havoc. Their strength lies in numbers. They multiply at a crazy rate, each Sequid able to spawn more as soon as it finds a host or enough organic matter. In Invincible number 47, Robot explains they work as a collective mind. One infects, and the rest follow, synced up to overwhelm their targets. That makes them dangerous, especially against defenses caught off guard. Their strategy, if you can call it that, is straightforward: infest and dominate. In the series, they go after the Guardians of the Globe, forcing Mark, Eve, and the team to scramble to peel them, literally, off their teammates. The comics show a full-scale invasion. Thousands of Sequids rain down on a city, turning civilians and soldiers into orange zombies, their bodies crawling with tentacles. But they've got a glaring weakness. Without a host, they're next to helpless. In Invincible number 48, Mark and Robot trap them by cutting them off from their victims, leaving them squirming like fish out of water, easy to squash or torch. Their reliance on other races holds them back. They don't build anything, don't really plan, just keep infesting until someone stops them. Unopan. Hailing from the planet Unopa, these extraterrestrials pop up in the comics around Invincible number 54-56. What do they look like? No frills here. They've got bright orange skin that almost leans toward rust, a single big round eye smack in the middle of their face, and three-fingered hands, slim but sturdy. Their vibe is simple, almost minimalist. No claws or natural armor, just a lean silhouette that calls to mind a Cyclops from an old sci-fi flick. They don't seem all that threatening at first glance, but their appearance hides a tenacity that's shaped their fate. We get a look at Unopa in Invincible number 54, when Mark Grayson and Adam Eve crash land there after an unplanned space trip. The planet's a rocky desert, whipped by sand-laden winds, dotted with scattered ruins hinting at a more glorious past. Why is it like this? The Viltrumites, of course, tore through it all. In Invincible number 55, a flashback lays out their ordeal. The Viltrumite Empire tried to conquer them, like they do everywhere, but the Unopans held on, not with weapons or brawn, but with sheer stubborn resistance. Their society, built around underground survival camps, relies on modest but effective tech. Water purifiers, shelters dug into stone, tools to scrape by in this mess. When Mark shows up, they eye him warily, their gravelly voices rising from a weary crowd still ready to guard the tattered scraps of their home. Their real strength is their survival instinct. The Viltrumites nearly wiped them out. They didn't have the speed or power to match them in a fight. But in Invincible number 55-56, we see they've endured by hiding out, rebuilding bit by bit after each attack. Their approach isn't flashy. They hunker down, patch things up, and hope the storms, or invaders, eventually wear out. It half works. In Invincible number 56, Mark offers to help them drive off the Viltrumites, but they turn him down, too distrustful or too worn to risk an open revolt. That caution holds them back. They lack the means or the drive to fight back, and their tech stays basic against the space giants. Later, in Invincible number 110, we learn they've joined the coalition of planets, even creating Alan, a genetically enhanced Unopan, but it doesn't change their fate. Unopa's in ruins, and they remain a race on borrowed time. Martian. Coming from Mars, the red planet we all know, these extraterrestrials show up in the comics as early as Invincible number 14, and in the animated series? What do they look like? They're slender humanoids with green-gray skin, smooth as leather, and bald heads topped with bony crests that give them a faintly reptilian air. Their eyes, large and black, glow in the darkness of their underground caves. They're not bulky or intimidating, no bulging muscles or futuristic weapons, but their odd appearance conceals a complex society and a history that makes them more interesting than you'd expect at first glance. We really get to know them in Invincible number 14, when Mark Grayson and a team of Earth astronauts touch down on Mars. There's no barren wasteland here. The Martians live beneath the surface, in networks of tunnels carved into the red rock lit by glowing crystals. Their civilization is structured, ruled by a monarchy under an emperor, a towering figure draped in a purple toga seen in the series. They've got tech suited to their harsh world, recycled air systems, energy shields for protection, even ships capable of space travel. Their big strength is adaptability. They've survived on an arid planet by building a hidden world safe from the sandstorms tearing across the surface. In Invincible number 15, they capture Mark, wary of outsiders, but let him go after a misunderstanding, showing a hint of openness despite their isolation. Their major trouble comes with the Sequids. In the series, we see how these slimy parasites nearly wiped them out. An infected astronaut, Russ Livingston, brings the Sequids to Mars, and in no time they start taking over the Martians, their green bodies twisting under the grip of orange tentacles. In the comics, Invincible number 46, this invasion gets detailed. The Sequids tap into their collective mind, turning whole villages into docile zombies. The Martians fight back with force fields and plasma weapons, but their weakness is glaring. They're too reliant on their defenses and not ready for a threat that slips inside. Mark and Robot step in during Invincible number 47 to save them, but it highlights their vulnerability. They need outside help to beat an enemy they didn't see coming. Atlantean. Originating from Earth's deep oceans, they appear in the comics and briefly in the animated series. They're classic aquatic humanoids, scaly blue-green skin, subtle gills along their necks, glowing eyes suited to the darkness of the seabed. They don't carry the imposing presence of Viltrumites, more lithe, with delicate fins and hair that flows like seaweed. Their domain is Atlantis, a hidden underwater city somewhere in the Atlantic. built from coral towers and translucent domes lit by bioluminescence. The Atlanteans have a well-oiled society led by a king, a bearded figure with a seashell crown, seen in Invincible number 19. Their tech is tailored to their watery world: energy tridents, transport bubbles, systems to bend ocean currents. In the comics, Mark Grayson crosses paths with them when they nab a human submarine, wary of land dwellers polluting their seas. Their strength? Total mastery of the ocean. They swim at insane speeds and withstand the crushing pressures of the abyss. In the series, we see them fend off an explorer team with slick coordination, using electric nets to shut them down effortlessly. But they've got their limits. Their isolation makes them vulnerable out of water. In Invincible number 20, Mark overpowers them with ease once on dry land, their bodies weakening away from the waves. They don't aim to conquer or expand. They guard their kingdom, and that's it. That caution shields them, but it boxes them in too. They lack the ambition of the Flaxans, or the humans' grit against outside threats. In Invincible, they stay on the sidelines. No invasions, no galactic wars, just a race holding onto its patch of ocean. Their short run-in with Mark reveals a justified distrust, but nothing universe-shaking. They're the silent keepers of the deep, a low-key presence that doesn't chase the spotlight. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss a thing.